We did our presentation on coaching aggression in sports. Aggression is classified usually as a physical or verbal behavior. It usually also involves harm or injury, which may either be physical or psychological on the other human being. And then it has been defined by psychologists as any form of behavior directed toward the goal of harming or injuring another living being who is motivated to avoid such treatment.
The first thing we looked at was we split up the different age categories, starting with youth sports, then middle school, high school range, and then the college professional range. So the youth sports, we included athletes that were 12 years or younger. And we found a study on elite child athletes. The participants were from the sports of diving, football, gymnastics, hockey, netball, and track and field. All these participants were asked questions on previous experiences that they had that had a residual impact on them. The data was collected using semi-structured interviews and response coding techniques. The results showed that all the participants reported experiencing that they experienced belittling and shouting by their coaches. 9 athletes reported frequent threatening behaviors. 9 reported frequent humiliation. 7 reported scapegoating. 6 reported rejection or being ignored. And 4 reported that they were being isolated when they were elite child athletes. These participants reported that they felt stupid, worthless, upset, less confident, humiliated, depressed, fearful, and angry as a result of the behaviors of their coaches. These results provided tentative evidence that the behavior of some of these coaches is a threat to the psychological well-being of elite child athletes. The next age range we looked at was middle school and high school sports, which ranged from about 13 to 18 years old. In this age range, the coaches played a major role in shaping the group's moral atmosphere. Many of the athletes in this age are maturing and are more able to realize that the coach is trying to make them a better player and motivate them even while they're being aggressive verbally to these players. And then the last age range we looked at was college and professional sports, which would be 18 years or older than that. These older players were affected less by the aggressive coaches than the younger players because they're more mature and understanding of the coach's intentions through the aggression. Over time, groups will develop more of a collective norms regarding appropriate behavior that influence team members' perceptions and actions in moral situations.
And then here we have a quick little 2-minute video on just like an example of coaching aggression. They go over one example that was really publicized a few years back, and then they just talk about how like after that situation how things have kind of changed a little bit with coaches and them being aggressive. No.
Coaches have a way of getting the most out of their athletes. Some are calm and collected, while others, like former basketball coach Bobby Knight and more recently Mike Rice, have more animated styles. Rice was recently fired over this practice video showing his abusive style.
Thousands of coaches across the country are watching their backs in light of the Mike Rice incident. They find themselves asking what the fine line is between being tough on their players and being out of control.
We're always up front, and you know, we're not the yelling, get in your face type of people to begin with. Maybe it was different for him being a college coach, but as a high school coach, you're dealing with kids with developing egos.
Developing college egos were damaged even more because Rutgers knew of these incidents. It's actions like this that have State College high school parents thinking twice about the people they trust with their children.
I have 3 kids in school, in sports, youth sports or high school sports, and we go to a lot of the practice before we give the coach a little more free rein. We just like to see their coaching style and how they treat their players. As a parent, it's our responsibility.
It's not just the parents that don't like the aggressive style. In a study by Clemson University, athletes are less motivated when they have an aggressive coach. The proof is in Rutgers' 44-51 record during Rice's 3 years.
Today's day and age, not even demeaning or yelling at kids. There's no reason for it. Kids understand. They know the game. It's just totally unacceptable.
Luckily for State College lacrosse parents, Coach King treats the athletic field as a classroom.
You've got to know that you're a teacher first, and people look up to you as that authority figure.
Coaches hold more power than they may believe, so it's up to them to define the line. Reporting in State College, I'm Miranda McCormick.
So that was that. And then aggression in coaches is usually found often more in males than females, but depending on the type of sport that they're coaching, the females can also be more aggressive while coaching. Usually things like that are more contact sport like lacrosse, soccer, even like MMA, which I know usually isn't like a high school sport or something, but they're still coaching their athletes. And then it was also found that coaches that have more experience tend to show more aggression to their athletes than coaches with less experience. And I just feel like that's because usually newer coaches are trying to like test the field still, even if they've already played the sport most of their lives. It's different being the athlete and being the coach and just trying to figure out what you want to do with your team and how you want to set that up. But then as you get more used to it, if you want a certain style, I guess, for the team, like I guess you'll be more aggressive if your athletes aren't living up to the expectations you want them to be at. And then there's also an emotional toll that's left on athletes that have dealt with coaching aggression. Sometimes they even have emotional abuse problems because coaches usually are viewed as parental figures, especially for the younger athletes, because they spend hours and hours with these people, so they also just look up to them like a third parent essentially, because they teach them different viewpoints, and it's just another adult in their life usually that's different from a parent, but they act like a parent at the same time. And then sadly, this emotional abuse does start at a younger age and can continue onwards as you mature as an athlete, but it also just depends on like what kind of programs you get into. And if you're more of an elite athlete, you're going to be in year-round coaching, so instances may be more with those kinds of situations. And then the effects can be long-lasting on the athlete's mental health, especially depending how traumatizing maybe the experience was or how long the emotional abuse may have gone on for that athlete. And sometimes this causes athletes to drop out of sports or even switch to a different sport with maybe a different coach and a different atmosphere where they might not come across these coaches that are too aggressive for them. And then here are our resources.